What is up, everyone? Thank you very much for being here. My name is Omar with my co host, Lola, my little co host, Lola. She's going to join us for a few minutes, guys. She was interested in what Papa was doing and talking about Antarctica. So she's going to come in and listen to us for a few minutes. Thank you very much for being here today with myself and my co-host, beautiful starseed Lola, talking about Antarctica, CERN, DOMS, misinformers, shills, and what have you. We got ourselves Eric J. Hecker back in the house and got Rob Yox, my co-host today, with me from Full Spectrum Universe with our beautiful Lola and Eric J. Hacker. We had Eric on a couple of days ago, and we thought that it would be best to bring him back on and really get into some of the shills out there that are disinforming and misinforming the UFO community, and bringing really credible speakers forward and then asking them questions to which they would have no information, so that they can ruin their credibility, ruin their reputation, and say, well, okay, well, there's nothing to see here, folks, move on type of mentality is what's being played out here. So one of the responsibilities of myself as a host of this platform is, when I come across things like that, I need to bring that forward, because we need to continuously inform our own community that follows us and let them know that, yeah, exactly, baby. You guys heard that? Lola has exactly the same thing to say about this whole debacle that we're dealing with, and moles and kind of what have you. There's a lot that we're going to get into today. So I'm going to hand it over to Rob as I disembark with my co-host, because she's ready to go for a walk and do some earthing. And I'll bring Eric on here, guys. So
So adorable. She's so adorable. Hi,
bye,
Lola.
guys.
Good to see you.
Very
This
cute kid
truly
there.
is one of the biggest problems that we're facing in our community, in all communities, is that these infiltrators, what they do is they come in and disseminate different information and try and make people look out of context, or try and bring other questions forward that aren't pertaining to their information to discredit these people. And the reason why we don't usually do these types of shows, but it's important that we call these out, because there's people in the field working very hard, diligently, to get their information out so people have a better understanding of things. And that's what we really are ultimately doing. We're bringing information forward. And now, if it doesn't work for you, you leave it and on to the next video or whatever the case may be. But when we have pertinent information that we want to give, that we feel strongly about to give to the people, we do it free. So, in a way that we say, here it is, you disseminate and discern what exactly you're taking from it, what you're going to use it for. But it's for everybody to know, because it constitutes who we are as people, that they need that info. When you get that info, now it's up to you to take it to the next leg. And we've seen avenues where certain peoples are propagating specific narratives to leave us in these places of fear, confusion, and that's the goal. That is their ultimate goal, to do that. And we know from what we've been working on that there are so many of these specific people out here to do these things, and it's disheartening, because we love what we do, we love how we do it, and we want to make sure that we are 100% present ourselves, and we don't have any ulterior motives while doing it. So when we see these things, it leaves a nasty taste in your mouth, and people need to see who these people are, not for the fact of our own egos, but for the fact that they could lead you down a rabbit hole that could ruin the information that you're currently working on, because everybody's truth is a bit different. It's seen through a perspective of their own life experiences. So for me to sit here and say to somebody else, you know some of it, but you don't know all of it. And because you don't know all of it, now I don't believe any of it. That's you can't we can't work that way in this community with this information that's so unknown until now. And we're
Mhm.
working to get that information out so everybody hears it and then comes back to the community with their understanding. So we all understand it that much greater in a more robust way. And I'll pause right there.
Absolutely, Rob, and I agree with everything you said. And usually, I don't make a habit out of calling people out, but as we get closer to the winter solstice and the timelines that we're working with, I think it's extremely important to out some of these people and to show our community exactly what we're dealing with, right? Because for the viewer, it's one thing watching, but for people that are producing these shows, it's a totally different game in the back end because you're dealing with a lot of ego. You're dealing with a lot of misinformers. You're dealing with a lot of shills. You're dealing with censorship on top of that. And some of the people that are out there disinforming are they've embedded themselves extremely well within our communities, and they're wearing this camouflage to where they appear to be one of us, but in actual reality they're not, and they're working for government agencies and alphabet agencies and kind of what have you. And as I was saying earlier, a lot of these guys, one of their tricks is when they bring you onto their shows, like our show for instance, is to ask you questions that you won't have information to, right? So now because you don't have information to their question as to what they're asking, then they'll badmouth you, and then they'll try to discredit you by saying that you don't have the information that I was asking for, so you have no information at all. But instead of asking the person about information to which they're familiar with and then try to understand that information, that concept is simply not there, because that's not the agenda of these people. And especially when it comes to the UFO community, right? UFO community is like, it's a very hot community with a lot of misinformation that is in there. I would say the 60% of the information within the UFO community is false information, and 40% would be, hear and say, and that's really it. I think if you want to talk about UFOs, we would have to talk to people on the ground that have had UFO experiences, that have the encounters of the first, second, third, fourth, fifth kind, like all of that. Those are the experts, right? Not not government agents that are really shilling and trolling our channels and speakers as well. So now to get into the show, guys, this is we're actually making history with Decipher TV, because we're simulcasting to the website, and I've put the address up here in the comments, and I would encourage everyone to go over to deciphering.tv and go and watch the live discussion on on Eric's website, because we're going to be streaming a lot more to that website. So sign up. It's all free, and you can log in and have some wonderful discussions that won't be censored. And of course, this is also being streamed to Full Spectrum Universe, and awesome channel. So we're simulcasting this
This
to
is a triple
multiple.
simulcast, huh?
Exactly, it is, brother. And
Nice.
welcome to our show this afternoon. Happy 4th of July to you, and I appreciate you being here.
Guys, thank you so much for having me. I'm actually really excited about this conversation. I feel like it was just the tip of the iceberg the other day with you and Omar when I brought this to you, and I'm happy that you guys have received it so well, because I feel very much that you are working diligently in this industry of disclosure, and I think it matters a lot when we find that there's a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Exactly.
It's kind of what brought me into the fold of this conversation to begin with, was that I had legitimate Antarctic experience, and I was looking around in a community of disclosure on said topic, and it just seemed really questionable about what some of these people were saying.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that upon my due diligence of 2 years in the disclosure community and bumping elbows with, researchers and experts, that I can certainly say that I have the experience to say some of these people are full of garbage.
Mm-hmm.
It's really that simple. Of course they don't want me saying that. Right? What leg do they have to stand on when dealing with someone like me?
I think,
None.
I think what's going on is that some of these interviews that are happening, like the one that you just had with UFO Man, right? Just going to call it out now. With the UFO Man and his partner Rob and Jax, I believe it was. And I found that interview to be, rude, number one, and
Distasteful, for sure.
distasteful, number two, and they weren't asking you the questions that needed to be asked, right? They were more, I found they were more concerned with, discrediting your experience to show that, you've never been to Antarctica and you don't know what you're talking about. And as the conversation progressed, I found that the questions got even more bizarre and more, uneducated, so to say, or ill-informed. And I found that the way they were approaching, the idea of security in a remote facility on a remote island where no one would really has any, access to, for me, I thought that their idea was more from like Jason Bourne and, more Hollywood type of style of security and clearances and things like that. But they, I don't know if they didn't understand or they just simply decided to ignore the fact that you had the fireman status there as well, which is quite important because when you're dealing with voltages, like 2100 volts per DOM, and then you have 5,000 DOMs, and then, just a power source for that alone is incredible. But then the power source for all the other facilities, the fireman is diligently needed in every aspect, every corner of the facility, because, if the fireman has to fill out paperwork to access a particular room, to check out to make sure that it's safe, then the facilities would have burnt down a long time ago. And I don't think that they, had that concept of that idea that you would be allowed to go in there. And not only that, but the security and with the work that they're doing there, you wouldn't understand it.
That's that perfect way of looking at it, actually, Omar, is that it was because of my firefighting role, actually guaranteed me access to every space.
Yeah.
I have many certifications in what is called the Federal Emergency Management Association's Incident Command Structure for mass casualty incidents and how to respond and task manage things. So part of that training is that we had to have firefighting protocols for every single space in the facility. So we had to train as well for that. So we were constantly accessing every space to go over emergency protocols on what would we do if A, we had a fire in this space, B, we lost personnel in this space, C, we had a catastrophic failure of equipment in this space. This was the job. This is what I did all the time there. And people really love discounting my qualifications because they go, well, we should ask a scientist. In reality, the scientists didn't know squat what was going on there compared to me. They came to me to find out what was going on. And I understand most people don't get that.
And also, just to add to that, Eric, is that even if they had their paperwork laid out and their computer screens open and they're doing their thing, right? They're classified things, and for you to walk in and do your inspection and leave, it would take you 5-10 minutes to go in there, take a look around, make sure everything's safe, everyone's safe, and leave. And even the information that you caught with your eyes that you saw laying around on paper or whatever, you really wouldn't have, a solid idea as to what they're working on. That would be like walking into an office, seeing a bunch of paperwork laying around, say, oh yeah, cool. And then just go around, do your thing and leave. So, to add that to the, credibility of a person, is, or not add that to the, to the idea.
I would say that's the presupposition on the part that's attempting to compartmentalize said information. Is they very much believe that they have so much of this stuff divided that the compartments won't intermingle. And then if you do happen to intermingle, you won't know what's going on.
Exactly.
I'm an anomaly in this equation because I have always crossed every line of compartmentalization, so I have never been as ignorant as all of these specialists.
And connecting those dots, especially right now,
Mhm.
just to go back to the fireman role, I can attest to that because, for a long time, I built towers in Vancouver, and I built 40-story towers, 60-story towers, 30-story towers, and I've built around 40 of them in Vancouver. I was, chief safety officer, as well as, EMT, the emergency medical technician for the site. Now, part of my role is to make sure that everyone is safe in the building, and I have a master key. And that master key allows me to get into any suite in the building that I want. Even if those suites are complete on the lower floors and they've been bought out, it still doesn't matter because, we're in charge of that particular facility, and I have access to every single one of those to go in and do my inspections and make sure that fire alarms are working, and smoke alarms, and the carbon dioxide levels are good, things like that, right? So I had access. Even if the homeowner was there, it really wouldn't matter because I can open up the door, go in and do my tests and leave, regardless of what they're doing in there. And now that's not compared to like what you're doing in Antarctica, but my way of understanding your, fire capacity within the facility there, I join it to my experience as building towers and say, okay, well, I had the same thing going on because I needed to do certain protocols, and you're doing certain protocols. So I understand that, right? And I found that the interviewer just simply didn't have that understanding, right? Because they came in with a preordained agenda, right? Number one, intimidation, right? I know Lou Elizondo, right? I'm in it before you go on the show. And for me, that's a part of intimidation. It's like, you better be careful of what you're saying because I know this person, and, I know my stuff kind of impression that's being pushed forward, right? So it was bullying right off the get-go, right? And then for Buddy to be sitting up on the top corner like Rob is and gunning you, right? Just like, like dude was like squaring off with you. And like,
I think there was a
and
bit of a different agenda with it too. And here's not to cut you off, Eric, but just to jump in very quickly and kind of put this out there, right? So when we do research, we look for boots on the ground, right? We look for the people who witnessed it, who encountered it, who were there, touch, taste, smell, senses. When we talk about South Pole Station or Antarctica in itself, there are maybe 2 to 3 people in the community that we can go to that have actually been there. So now what happens, right? So now we're looking at all these other people propagating these stories about Antarctica, what's the potential, what could possibly happen, and who do they have to discredit because eventually the two narratives are going to come head to head or butting up, and 9 times out of 10 you're going to take the experiencer's word over people who are propagating it from research. So of course this is a compartmentalization to keep Eric in his box and not jump out of his lane too far and make, because of his experience. So now they can lid Eric completely, and they can go on to this fantastical idea of what could the potentials be, but not the actuals. And the actuals give us the foundations for those fantastical potentials when we really look into it. And that's where we start with good research, by taking the word of those people. So for Eric to empower everybody else, we look at Eric's story, we take it for what it is, and we look at it and say, okay, from what we know so far, Eric gave us this info. So now, is this a potential? Is that a potential? Instead of saying, here's a narrative, and you're going to follow it all the way through, we're going to make you fearful throughout that narrative. We're going to confuse you because we don't want you to have this information. And if you do have this information, you're not going to be allowed to go out with it. And I think that there is a nefarious narcissism that goes along with these people asking questions that are not relative and trying to downplay the information, especially when they know specific people higher up within the community that are disseminating other information from other people already. And that to me is nefarious, narcissistic, egotistical, and doing a tremendous disservice to the people out there who are actually hungry for this knowledge, like myself. And now when I look at these people, it's hard to respect those people who go about it in that way, because they had people on this panel that was a paranormal expert. While it could potentially be some connection with paranormal, why bring him in unless to use him to motivate their own agenda as opposed to the agenda of what when you have a guest come on, you're about extracting surgically the information that the audience is going to connect with, not validate your own information and try and push that further. That's not a good host. That's not a person who's trying to do the best for the audience. And that's just my opinion. I'm not saying that these people are completely guilty of that, whether they know it or not. This is what I saw happening, and it's concerning. It's concerning.
I will go as so far as to say it's my experience that what these folks were doing was feigning ignorance for the purposes of discounting. It's just that functional. So what they're basically doing, and this is like it's a COINTELPRO counterintelligence type thing, right? Is that no matter what I'm saying, they have to figure out a way to take the opposite information and get that into the broadcast as well. And that's how you confuse the people. I say one thing, they say the opposite. I say neutrino detector, they try to say, oh, so you're saying it's a neutrino accelerator? No, I never said that. Why are you saying that? They're just trying to confuse the conversation pieces, and they do it under the false pretense of being ignorant, when in reality they know every talking point, every bullet point. They got handed a folder, and it's their job to now all of a sudden play dumb. I never had an interview scheduled as far out as that interview. It was like 2 months out. There's plenty of time for anybody to look into the stuff that I've put out for 2 years.
Prepare.
It's
that's
not
what you
that
do.
hard.
That's a good host too. They prepare for somebody to come on, and that's what I talk about, that surgical extraction of the info.
And then if it turns out that for 2 months, if you didn't look into what I brought up, and then all of a sudden I'm bringing it up in the conversation, to then rapidly discount what I'm saying because you hadn't seen it before, to me I thought was really over the top.
Of course.
You know?
Listen, there's a lot of people and I'm only going off the eye experience. There's a lot of people I talk to where I am not completely versed in that information, but I'm learning while we go, right? And I bring people on that I kind of have an interest in, and I want to know more about it. Now, there's this unseen dichotomy or dynamic between host and guest, and even if, let's say, during the interview you're not resonating 100% with that person, you don't make that known, and you still try and go deeper on behest of the people watching. Not well, let's change what we're talking about.
Yeah, not only that. Sorry, Rob, but
go ahead.
passing private messages back and forth behind the conversation.
Another weird sign.
And telling someone while you're live that, hey, check your private messages, right? I think that makes the speaker uncomfortable, because then the speaker is thinking, what is it that they're talking about behind my back, and and then that adds that level of stress to the conversation, because you've already began the conversation with a threat, number one. Number two, you're being gunned, just that constant, that angry look, and asking questions that really have no business being asked. So for me, like I said, right from the beginning of the get-go, when you're behaving like that, and that clearly shows, one, that you have an agenda that you come in with, which is false agenda, and you're looking to discredit the individual. But I look at it from the line of questioning as well, because I'm a host myself. I've been doing this for a number of years now, up to a decade now. And it's the questions that you ask your speaker, and then the follow-up questions that need to be involved in that, to have that full understanding as to what your speaker is talking about, because we're journalists. Literally, we are journalists, and as journalists, our job is to uncover a story, right? And then I'm uncovering a story with Eric, with his experience being in Antarctica. I don't care about anything else beyond that. I don't care if there is Lou Elizondo in the corner, if there's Nick Pope over there, none of that matters to me, because the only thing that I'm interested in is, what was your experience like in Antarctica? What did you see? What have you learned afterwards? And how did you connect those dots to paint this picture for me to see? And as my speaker is speaking, my job is to ask a follow-up question to something that I don't understand of what Eric said. Like when we first did the talk with Eric, what was that? During Total Disclosure, Eric did a full presentation, showed us the DOMS and showed us the images and took us right through a PowerPoint presentation, which allowed me to understand what he's talking about. So the next talk after that is obviously going to be about what Eric showed me visually. Now, when I come across a show like the one with the UFO man, I would assume that he didn't watch that presentation. Now, I don't know how many presentations Eric's done over the years sharing the same information, but I know that I have it, and I'm going to go back to it, and I'm going to reference it, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to ask Eric questions on that. Now, to be a diligent journalist and a questionnaire on a show, you should be Googling and YouTubing your next speaker that's coming up, and try to watch as many shows as they have done, any PowerPoint presentations that they have done, so that you can take down questions and then come at them with those questions. Not like, what was the frequency a particular thing was vibrating at when you're standing in front of an electrical panel. Tell me, Eric, how much sense does that make?
It makes no sense in a practical reality, but if we look at it in the upper bird's eye view of what was really going on in that conversation, it shows how they were attempting to confuse the audience, was all. Because if they are feigning expertise, then they should know better to ask that question. I understand the audience may not know that, but I'm certainly not lacking the knowledge of the conversation of my own experiences. I mean, it gets ridiculous at a certain point when you have someone who wasn't there telling you what was going on when you were there, and or then discounting your experience of being there when they were, I don't know, 20,000 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that just to talk about my own personal experiences, I've known Eric for 2 years, probably about, right, Eric? About 2 years, maybe a year and a half.
Rob, you're one of the first people that I would say that I spoke to way back when.
Yep. And I one of the things that I love that Eric does is he has this experience and finds out more information. He does this research. And from the beginning time of when you first came out with this information, it has manifested to more in-depth, a little bit more detail, and it's changed because of what you've learned from it, which is the actual dynamic of a good storyteller or a good presenter. And what you've done is when you find something out, you go back and you reassess all the information again and update it. So it's not just a one and done. This is a ever present and ever growing presentation. That's the story of what Eric has been through. And, one of the things I say, we're going to keep going with this a little bit more, but I want to get to the information too, because it's vital. This information is vital. It's the tip of the spear. And when we get the whole spear in our hands is when we truly get to that point of, now we know, and now we're empowered with that information. And I've seen Eric's papers. I've gone through his website. I've checked all of it. I've even downloaded the PDFs that he has there of the documentation from the CIA and things like that, because I wanted to make sure that it was in my arsenal when the time comes. It's Project Stargate. I mean, there's so much on there. And I love the work he does, and I respect him greatly. To see this happen to a respected friend, it's like, it's kind of sad. But now I think we have to get to this point where these people messed up, but now we need to lay it out for everybody here right now, the 78 people within the two streams, possibly more with Eric's stream too, right now, and give them the info so we can stand above and rise above that specific incident. Because while ultimately we're exposing it, let's really expose it by putting that information out there and show the lack of knowledge that these people came into it with, and the lack of understanding, which in turn makes Eric's presentation even that much greater. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's like information that came out in our last talk that we did just a couple of days ago that I had no idea about. And Eric raised that awareness, and now I'm trying to understand it even more. So maybe Eric can touch on this, because Eric was talking about the sea harps in Antarctica, and I've never heard of sea harps. And when I think about sea harps, they sound like they're mobile devices, and they can really place them anywhere on the planet that they want. And when you have these DOM type of CERN type of facility built in Antarctica, and then we have one up in Alaska, and then you have these portable sea harps that are moving about the planet. To me, that's extremely concerning. So I'd like to understand that even more. Now, see, these are the types of questions that the UFO men should have asked, instead of asking about which room you can go into and how did you get in there. Who gives a shit what room you went into and how you got in there? I don't give a fuck about that. What I care about is that you're telling me that it's 2200 volts, 5,000 plus DOMs, sea harps. That's the important information. Now, there was a question earlier on in our stream here. Somebody asked, how does knowing this help the average person? And I think that's a wonderful question, and it's a practical question. And that's something I'd like to address on my channel, because I'm all about practicality. To know that aliens are there, okay, great. Wonderful. How does that help me, right? Is the alien going to come down, teach me how to meditate? Is he going to teach me how to manipulate matter? Okay, if that's the case, I'm down with it. If not, then I don't really care, right? I want to understand the practicality of it. So, we have these sea harps and DOMs, and, we've got this insanity that's happening, and no one's talking about it. No one wants to talk about it. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about these sea harps. Give us a download, Eric.
I like this question, actually. How does knowing any of this help the average person? I mean, that's a really fair question.
Yeah.
But it's not that simple to answer, because it really boils down to, it's almost like saying, in a way, well, Eric, you're telling us that we're being poisoned like crazy every day. How does that help the average person?
You're talking about chemies, right?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm putting up a hypothetical.
Okay.
If I just hypothetically said, you know what, I've discovered that everybody's getting poisoned constantly every day in a way that they never knew. And if somebody's question was, well, how does that information help the average person? I say that information doesn't really help the average person as much as it does inform them as to better decisions they need to be making.
Mm-hmm.
So no, my information isn't really helpful. But boy, it's quite informative on the next steps people should be taking.
I like that.
But the problem that people resist my information with is it forces them to start making decisions and take steps. And people don't want to do that. That's an inherent character flaw of humanity, is ignorance is bliss.
Mm-hmm.
Because it does require activity.
Laziness
requires blissful recreation.
Laziness too in there, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of apathy, and we've had this inculcated in society that, responsibility is challenging and hard and not fun and for angry people. But I'm just challenging people to be responsible in the world around them, to be informed to the true challenges about them, and to step up to the responsibility of that knowledge.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
It is
That's
a lot.
a lot to handle. And, that's right. And one of the hardest things that it is for anybody to do is to go back, once in power with this information, reevaluate things and change their perception moving forward. We're all, myself, more than anybody, I'm like the biggest culprit of being a creature of habit. If I eat peanut butter and jelly for lunch today, I'm going to eat peanut butter and jelly for a week until I'm tired of it, just because that's kind of who I am. I'm eccentric in a lot of the things that I do. So this information going forward and understanding it leads you down a pathway of well, if they're not telling us the truth about what's really going on down there, what else out there is not happening in the way that they say it? And then it opens up this Pandora's box that can turn everything upside down. And that is the hardest part, I think, to face, because now what is that reality that you are currently residing in that you can no longer get out of your mind or unsee, and now you have to capitulate to what you're doing in this moment for yourself and empowering yourself with it, because
Yeah.
they're going to capitulate you if you don't, do it for yourself.
I feel like I get concerned that, like you said, that there's this other program that they're trying to shove down everybody's throat, and here I come with other information, and I'm like, hey, you know what? This is what you really need to pay attention to. That other stuff is just speculative sensationalism. There's a lot of I'll say all possibility exists always, right? But we need to get to the facts of the matter. And it seems like every time we try to bring up the facts of the matter of what could potentially really be going wrong, we get back to the speculation that's been going on for decades. And I don't want to cry chicken little, like the sky is falling, like everything's hopeless. I don't want to do that. I want to make sure everybody's truly informed, so we have actual true hope. I don't believe that if everybody's following the controlled narrative, that they have hope. That's what I'm trying to do here, that people are getting confused on. The hopelessness is for those following the controlled narrative. If you're going to follow the Pied Piper, you're going to get led off the cliff. So I'm trying to break into this fiasco of contemporary disclosure, which seems to be a lot of BS. That is unfounded shenanigans.
No such thing. No such thing. And
you guys are UFO researchers and stuff like that. I'm not against the idea of UFOs. I'm not saying that this stuff ain't possible in the slightest. I'm just saying, like you guys, we got to find some facts on these conversations.
Yeah, and I don't think we should be looking to the government for the facts and the truths, because they've their job is to lie to us, and their job.
No one's
is
proven to be lying more
us
about this topic for the last 4 decades than the governments.
Yeah, and I think it's mentally challenged of people to be looking to the government for disclosure, because disclosure from the government is just simply never going to happen. It's a carrot that's being dangled in front of our faces, and that is it. If we are interested in disclosure, then that disclosure is going to be personal disclosure, and that's really where it's going to stop. Maybe one day there might be a mass disclosure of ETs just showing up and just doing their own disclosure, but we definitely can't be looking to the government or government agents for any truthful information. Like in this show, we called up Lou Elizondo. Lou Elizondo is all about the money. And that's all it is. It's about the funding of a particular program so that money can be invested in the secret space program or secret weapons or something, but not for the UFO. And to me, I'm going to do this now, but to me, Nick Pope falls into that very same line of misinformationers and disinformers that are operating within the UFO community, because we have to look at Nick Pope's background. Nick Pope's background is that he was the head of the UFO investigation for the UK government for like 25 years. Supposedly says that he's retired and has moved on, but he's under non-disclosure orders and gag orders. Yeah, gag orders and such. Yeah, and I don't believe him. I just simply don't believe him, because when you ask him a question that's has any relativeness to it, where we would find out the truth, you always get the same answer. Well, I can't talk about that because I'm under disclosure and yada yada yada. And so for that particular reason, I don't think people like himself should be looked at as pariahs of UFO information. And I think we need to go to really smaller groups on the ground that are working on the ground.
Exactly.
And
boots on the ground.
That's right. And get our information from them, and not look to guys like Lou and Nick and, people who are involved in it for the money. Right? It's really what my point is. If you're involved in it for the money, then you're really not worth listening to, because obviously your agenda is money, and you'll say whatever it is that you need to say to make sure that your funding is secured and it doesn't come under threat. Now, if that means to throw somebody under the bus that's telling the truth so your funding can be secure, they'll do that. And I, obviously don't agree with it, because it's not the right thing to do. Number one. Two, it brings bad karma. But three, it really damages the community and everyone that's within the community, because we have to also keep in mind that we are a very small community of UFO investigators and researchers and such across the planet. So when our genre, our niche is being attacked or is being disinformed, or you know what I mean, when that type of operation is happening, then the general public in large is going to look at that and say, okay, well, that's just conspiracy theories and that's it. So it puts us in bad light. So we can't be doing that, because we're trying to bring truth to the front, and then you have these people in the background that are sabotaging the work that we're doing, and that's really the key here, right? Because I don't remember Buddy asking you anything about sea harps, or when you did bring up the DOMS.
Related information was not there. It was a jump to discount.
That's right.
When you talk about small groups, the first thing it made me think of when you said that was like, yeah, I know about small groups. I'm a winter rover from South Pole. It's one of the smallest, demographics on the planet.
Right.
And you would think in the conversation of the topic of South Pole Station and or Antarctica, that at some point, some folks would start to respect my experiences on this topic. I recently went to blows in a way off air, because I go to Antarctica. Everybody always reaches out to me and goes, oh, you need to speak to Linda Moulton Howe. She's the expert on Antarctica. Which I'm like, okay, it's interesting because she's never been there, but she's apparently the expert on Antarctica. Nothing stopping her from going. Nothing stopping her from reaching out to me if she's such an amazing researcher. But lo and behold, I had to reach out to her. And long story short, because my story didn't support her controlled narrative of everything is UFOs 1,000%, and I have to back up everything that her mystery shadow Navy SEAL guys say, because I wouldn't do that. She started discounting me. She started trying to say, well, what do you know? And how do you know? And you're just a plumber. And did you check with any physicists to support what you're saying?
Just randomly there. Physicists just right there. Excuse me.
Right there.
Scientist.
Yeah, right there. She said,
excuse me, scientist, can I ask you a question?
I believe she actually said, you're just a plumber. Didn't you ask any physicists?
How insulting.
I think that there is an actual, it's a disingenuous laziness that.
I'm sorry, Eric.
No, it's fantastic. It was totally horrible on her part. It is what it is.
Right. But when these people interview somebody, like there's certain episodes you do that are speculation. You could do all different types of episodes on your show. There's certain shows where we're talking about matters that are so unknown that mostly what we can do is speculate from what we know. And then there's also episodes where we take and make the foundations of those speculations with hard truths that we find from sources. That's how we decipher, the full spectrum of what the.
Oh, looks like Rob froze. Give him a second.
At
He'll
the
come
full
back.
spectrum of. Come on, Rob.
Come on,
Full
Robbie.
spectrum
Come
of.
back. They let me.
We lost him.
Yeah, I know. I took him off. Let me put him back on and see if he comes back. No, it must be because he said it started to have internet issues. There he is. He's back.
The moment we started talking, they always throttle my bandwidth. But basically, there's a time and place for those specific shows. And when you start mixing the two, it's intellectually lazy and it's dishonest. And there's a lot to unpack when we see that, because now there's something else going on besides just not having an understanding of it. Because again, we're in front of a lot of people whenever we go on, and it's not, boasting or bragging, but we should know some sort of information to add to the conversation. Otherwise, we're not doing what we're setting out to do by having that specific, title as host.
Yeah,
I think you're
yeah.
being really polite, Rob, under the pretense that they were just inexperienced hosts. I don't think that was the case. I think this is a targeted, intended situation.
Absolutely.
I think if people go back and watch this UFO man video that's on my website, deciphering.tv, go take a look, because I got nothing to hide. These guys tried to attack me, and I think I defended myself really well. And I think if
You
people
did.
pay attention to what they did, they will see these tactics being applied other places as well. So this was an example of how the enemy functions. This is how they try to control the narrative, by applying disinformation, by applying confusion, by being discounting. The tactic is called dissipating. Whenever there's an organized effort that's grassroots from the government, you will have moles, provocateurs, and dissipators show up. So I am moving forwards with deciphering my experience and trying to advance my agenda of disclosure of my experiences and my truth. So now there are people that are basically trying to slow that roll.
Just to go back earlier to when that question was posed, like, how does this help me on a day-to-day basis and practically in my life? And you responded by saying that, hey, it's just information. I'm informing you, and that's really all I can do. And right. I think that's the same thing with everyone as well, because
what is the value to removing a lie?
That's right. Yeah,
that's where
finding out the truth.
Right.
That's finding out
what
the
I'm
truth.
offering to humanity is I'm removing lies,
and as well exposing the deep state that is embedded within our communities. This not just the UFO community, but it's the consciousness community as well. The megalithic community, and it just goes on and on, because if you're not following the narrative of what they're giving you, then you're the enemy. Even if you have the truth, you're the enemy, and they're going to come at you with whatever they can.
Governments and corporations of every nation in the world invest heavily to sway public opinion on every topic. And people need to really appreciate what that means to the view of the world around them. Shakespeare said all the world is a stage, which another way of framing that same statement is all the world is staged. It's been going on for hundreds of years.
Maybe even thousands.
Yeah, when we look at that.
Absolutely, Rob. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when we walk around and we look at the world around us, and you and I meet, whether in person or on a digital level like this, and we're discussing reality, are we?
Maybe.
Or is it all staged? So you and I have actually no clue to what's going on because we're just watching stagecraft.
That's right. And to come into the consciousness aspect of that, we say the very same thing, that the world is a stage and that we are a character playing on that stage. So this human experience of mine, Omar, right, that's on this global stage. I'm playing out my part as part of my role on that grand stage, because the play is already happening. And then when we incarnate onto this plane, we're just simply taking on a role that is either going to benefit the concert, right, or or it's not, right. And my way of taking up this role is through this broadcast. Same with Rob. Your role is to explore and poke holes and dig, and that's the role that you've chosen. And everyone else has a same roles that they've carved out for themselves. But at the end of the day, even though we are on this grand stage, within that stage, we still need to do our shadow work. We still need to do our light work. And what I'd like to, get from your experience, Eric, is that I've never done a shill broadcast before, right? I've never attacked anyone on my shows. Even if I didn't agree with them, I just simply questioned them, and I waited to an hour and I killed the show, and then that was it. And I just never bring them back on. And from that point forward, I've learned to vet my speakers and to make sure that, they're resonating with the way this platform works. Now, from your experience having dealt with this type of individual, when people are watching, after this stream, tomorrow, next week, so to say, or whenever, what do you think people should be looking out for? Right? Because we know that some of these people are well camouflaged, they're well versed in their information, and they know what they're talking about, but they have an agenda to off-kill, the speakers. So because you've dealt with them, and in the future when people are watching similar type of content, what do you think they should be watching out for to to lay out those markers and say, okay, well, this guy is behaving in such a way?
Right? You guys produce shows. So when you have a guest on, I would say that right off the bat, you either interested or having the guest on because you either A, agree and support what they say, or B, you don't. And I would imagine that once you get on air, the audience would know the difference immediately if you're being genuine.
Let us know in the audience, guys.
Most people would still figure it out even if you weren't being genuine. So I think what we witnessed on the episode with UFO Man was simply that. We watched their actions speak for them. If they had me on their show and they were supportive of my position, I think it would have gone drastically differently. So because of how it did go, I'm going to say that the actions and outcomes speak volumes for where their intentions were. They didn't like anything about me. They were totally informed about me, but they don't like me. So that's the interview that you get when agencies under false pretenses do what they do.
If that was the case, I wouldn't have even wasted my time bringing that person on. Like, not like,
right,
I know
because you're a genuine interviewer trying to do disclosure. That's not what they're up to. Their agenda is to control the narrative. I happen to be a mole, like Papa Mole, like I'm sticking up and I don't meet their narrative, so they're trying to whack me down.
That's exactly what it was.
Yep.
I mean,
asking.
It's crazy.
And I've seen this before. There's other interviews that are out there that I've done that have gone like this, where, I mean, you guys know me. We've done some interviews. Like I'm not the most agreeable person on the planet. I know that. But I do my best to get my truth out there. I attempt to be respectable, except when lines get crossed. Then I'm a pit bull. I mean, listen, I wintered at the South Pole for a reason. I'm kind of half a savage. I'm polite most of the time.
But we appreciate that. See, there's a difference.
I'm a fucking savage,
when somebody comes in there, regardless of if we disagree on something and we kind of contest each other, when it's all said and done and it all falls down, we're still talking. It's respectful.
Right, exactly.
And
but that's what I'm getting at with these
disputing. You know, it's fun.
These other folks don't know me from a hole in the wall, and they think they're going to jump my stuff from this nefarious angle. You know, they're being disingenuous. I'm not. I have a real experience. I can move very boldly with every word that comes out of my mouth, and nobody can actually stand up to that because I
love
was
that you put it up too. I love that you put it up to be like, here, look, it was an interview I did. It wasn't the greatest here with these guys.
Hey, you know what?
Did some shit, and that's what it is. And I love it.
While you're there, scroll down. I just recently put up Tim's comment, even though that I was blocked from commenting on their video entirely. You can scroll down. Tim's comment is right there from UFO Man. That's him.
Okay, let's read it. It goes, this was all your opinion. We are totally professional with your interview. You had the audacity to yell at and cause my co-host of being the cause of disinformation and not promoting transparency. Then you called our friend Lou and all of his friends shills and charlatans. You wanted us to agree with everything you said without exception. If we ask questions, you berated us on the live for not going to your website, which at least I did. We expect you to attend a pre-show chat that you opted out on, not attending, and gave no response and or email. until the night before the show, minutes before you had another show to be at. This is where we vet our guest. If I would have known you had such a deliberate intent to attack my guests and my co-hosts, this live so-called interview never would have happened. We respect the guests on our show and accept the same. In return, you offered neither. Oh, well, I didn't see professionalism in
beg to
that
differ on
interview. Yeah, because look at this
What do
guy
you think of
right
that,
here.
Rob?
Yeah.
I can't
Well, you
believe
got-
even the fact that he said it afterwards and actually had the audacity to put that comment out there shows
Mhm.
that there was a narrative being perpetrated, and now they have to retort because their show didn't look the way that they wanted it to, and they had to turn the blame on you
Mhm.
to I don't want to say capitulate, but to make their audience feel like it was all you and not them.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
a seasoned journalist would tell you that that was a setup, start to finish.
Yeah, and you can see right there. So they got mad that when they brought up Lou, I didn't capitulate, and I called them a shill immediately, which got them mad.
That's your prerogative too. You don't have to agree with everything they say.
Right.
Nobody says
Right.
that. Nobody says that. I could like Lou. Eric could not like Lou. And
Right.
regardless of whatever anybody says, my feelings are my feelings. Nobody's going to change that. And I'm not going to capitulate my feelings just because I'm on some show.
Yeah,
And
no, and
Eric expressed the fact that he did not like these people. He thought that there was nefariousness behind what they were doing. And it's money driven, which we know it is because these people step out into the spotlight to make a living. So how do you take, it's like a car salesman. He has to sell you that car to make a living. So whatever tactics he used, his end of the day goal is a paycheck. I was a car salesman for a long time. So I get it.
and when I was watching this, normally I don't, I ignore it, right, when I see it, or I'll change the video. But this was like homework I was doing, and I wanted to watch it from beginning to end. And what I found was that this guy Rob up here, his energy was just terrible. He was just gunning Eric and squaring off, and the questions that he was asking just, didn't make any sense.
They weren't relevant.
It was all about how did you get into this room and that room, and how's that possible, and how's that possible. And again, we covered that in the beginning of the show. And then
it was disbelieving what I was saying. It was like, here's my words, and he just didn't want to believe it. I simply had a key that opened every door. It's not a complex issue.
Yeah. I'm glad this guy Jax just stayed quiet, because even when the guy Tim asked him a question, he just looked up to the sky and he was like, So yeah.
Hold on, wait. Look at the
Like,
smirk
not
on
for
his face
nothing.
right now. You can see that just by facial expressions and body language. Look at his face. He's obviously
He's trying not to laugh sometimes, I thought.
Well, this is the guy who got the back message, right? So now he's trying to not engage and seem impartial, but he knows what's happening and what's coming up. That's what that. When you touch your nose like that too, that is a clear indication that there's something more going on. If you study body language, there is something going on behind the scenes that he's alluding to, which is why he covers himself when he does it.
Yeah, that, and he doesn't feel comfortable with what he's saying. I watch those body language shows and such, right? And when people just keep messing with their nose like that, it indicates that they're not very comfortable in either what they're saying or in what they're hearing in return, right? And that's the body's way of...
You nailed it, Omar. You nailed it. At the end of the airing of the show, the conversation continued. I tore the Rob character a new a-hole. I crushed him, and he hung up and ran away because he's a coward and he was wrong. And I hammered him. He ran away, and then the other two remained and proceeded to apologize profusely for what occurred.
But then they had the audacity to leave that comment after the fact.
Correct. That's called being a coward and being duplicitous. To my face, they're very agreeable.
Right.
Behind my back, they speak differently. That's the way the world works now. I'm used to bullies on the street. I would punch them in the face and they would run. These guys know that I'm that type of person. So when I challenge them, they immediately yield because they're not ready for any kind of a fight. But when I'm not around, boy, will they talk smack.
Usually it's the case, isn't it?
Yeah, they're running around right now, and their thing is going to other spots that I've done videos, and now they're leaving negative comments like, oh, how dare you listen to this guy? He's just a dumb plumber.
Yeah, I think we need to get beyond that mind concept of he's just a plumber. It's like, okay, we got that, right? You're a plumber.
Right.
Okay, great. That was your ticket into this facility, and we're all grateful that you are a plumber because it allowed you to get into somewhere where we can't, and then you can come back with information which we can't.
Well, I can tell you, I can ask you right now, Omar, from your experience in the trades, in the construction that you're familiar with, in the grand scheme of any situation where you want to have people habitating, how important is plumbing?
Well, it's quite important. It's so important that I used to have Thirsty Thursdays with my plumbing crews on every single week on every single one of my projects because I understand the value of the plumbers from the ground up because they were on my site from the ground up. When we were digging the hole for our parkades, the plumbers were there laying down their pipes and every Thursday, literally, I'm not even kidding, every Thursday we had a Thirsty Thursday meeting after work where I would go to their trailer and we'd sit there and we'd drink beers and rum and kind of what have you. And we just trade talk. We just talk and shop talk kind of deal, right? And they'd come and give me booze, lots of booze they would give me. I had so much booze that I would give it to my superintendent. Right? I was like, stand here. I can't drink all this, And he's like, man, you and those plumbers, what the fuck are you guys doing? So I understand the value. Yeah. I understand the value of the plumbers. That's why I was saying, I'm glad that was your.
You need bathrooms.
Yeah,
you need bathrooms for wherever you are.
I get that a lot of people. I get that a lot of people have no idea the complexity of plumbing systems and subsystems in our society. And I also get that they have no idea how much more exponentially harder it is to make those systems and subsystems work at a place like the South Pole Station in the wintertime.
Oh my God.
I assure you that I wasn't there because I'm a knucklehead.
Water freezes. I mean, let's be honest about it.
I'm glad you brought that up because, Vancouver, it's a relatively warm city in Canada, right? Wintertime temperatures drop to like say -5, -6 or so, -10 if you go further out inland. But in Vancouver in itself, it's quite warm in the wintertime. You can literally walk around with just a heavy vest on and you're good. And around Christmas time was really one of my most stressful times. Even with the temperature, dropping down to -1, -2, when I was building my towers and we didn't have any windows in on the main floors, my concern was the pipes, right? I didn't want the pipes to freeze over. And even though they're insulated, but they're still not protected. So a few days before Christmas, I would go through this entire thing where I would be putting up blanket tarps all around my open gallery where all my pipes are exposed, and I would have propane tanks going in there to have that heat, and then have somebody there on site. 24 hours, somebody comes in, checks up on the propane pipes, leaves, comes back a few hours later and make sure those propane pipes or those propane tanks are still going, and if they need to be changed, you change them because of the piping. Because if those pipes had burst, there's millions and millions of dollars worth of damage that needs to be replaced, and the work that has to go and the damage that it's going to cause in the tower. So I could just imagine the complexity of it, of having to deal with something like that in the Arctic, right? In the Antarctic, it's
even colder.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think
you can appreciate one time. So we had a glycol heating loop, 4-inch diameter, L copper, going through an ice tunnel that was at the time of probably getting close to -80 degrees ambient.
Ooh,
and
wow.
I had to make a repair. I had to solder that.
Cold, your
right? So you
eyeballs
You
start
could imagine,
freezing
Omar,
on
being
that.
in this type of conversation, right? A
impact.
safety meeting where the crew is now trying to figure out, how do we solder 4-inch L copper pipe in minus 80-degree ambient?
Yeah, that is a serious safety meeting. Yeah, man, because your piece of your body gets exposed to that instant frostbite.
Oh, well, that was the easy part. That's
Yeah,
that's
how
the
do
everyday
you?
stuff at South
Yeah,
Pole. But yeah, I mean, but these are things that people don't understand. These are
yeah,
conversations that most people on the planet will never have.
yeah, and the fire, and the fire aspect of it all too. That's I think even more important than well, probably not, but I would say it's about the same. Fire and plumbing, because you lose your plumbing, you're screwed. You got no water. You get a
Mm-hmm.
fire. You got no
Mm-hmm.
water to put that fire out with, and you're screwed. So either way, I can see, both of them going hand in hand and being an extremely important role within the facility. And I don't think anybody in their right mind that's down there would look at you and say, "No, you're not allowed coming into this room. Get the fuck out of here. We got secrets going on. Quick, hide!" And scrambling
Yeah.
and hiding all the. No.
Right.
I just simply can't see that. And that to me
And
is not
people
even
don't
part of
understand the depth of
credibility.
experience, like as if I don't know the difference. I was also in the United States Navy in the nuclear submarine service, and I was a fire control technician, which was having me get the experience of being trained to up to and including nuclear tipped weapons. So I'm very familiar with secrecy protocols. And that's what I'm saying. In my experience, I'm extremely familiar with secrecy protocols. And what I'm stating is that the more and or most secret stuff doesn't have barbed wire fences, doesn't have key cards, doesn't have eye scanners, because that stuff draws attention.
Best place to
There
hide
are
something is right
CIA
in front of
buildings
you.
in your community, and if they had eye scanners, everyone would know it. So they don't. They say things on them like Sleepy's mattress facility. Right? Guess what, folks? The CIA will lie to you. Oh my God.
That kind of takes me into, you're muted, Rob. You're muted, bro. There you go.
Gotcha. I was to say that's a revelation right there. I had a question in the chat on Full Spectrum Universe asking about Antarctica itself and do the white hats control Antarctica?
That's a
wild question.
I'm going to say right off of the top of my head, that's above my pay grade to answer that question that directly, right? Yes or no? I don't know. From my experience, I think people need to take this white hat conversation and throw it out the window as fast and furiously as possible. No one's coming to save you, folks, by any definition. This is propaganda 101. So now back in regards to other factions. White hats is a manufactured conversation piece to keep people on their couches and complacent and lazy.
Yes.
There's a fight going on. Get in it. If you're not in it, someone else's faction is putting a lot of effort into their intention. If you're going to sit on your couch while the fight goes on, your agenda is going to lose. Back to who's in control at South Pole Station, Antarctica in general. There are so many dogs in the fight that people don't know. Everybody keeps trying to reduce things down to singular and simple. It ain't.
Very complex.
Yeah, you got
it's extremely complex, and that's part of the game, is that everybody's challenged. Oh, well, if you're so smart, then answer, what's the problem?
The treaties. First off, it's the international treaties that you have probably every eggshell to walk on just by even speaking in the facilities, let alone any sort of action.
Eisenhower's treaty.
Right.
I think there's so much more shenanigans going on. Like I'm bringing out the ice cube neutrino detector, all these other technologies. To me, this is where reality is at. Reality is in a direction that nobody's ever considered, ever imagined, and it's way that far in the other direction, which is why they're trying to limit my speech, because my speech does not follow the controlled narrative. I'm not simply saying, oh, did you hear there's a thing called a UFO?
Right.
You know, as if we just need to hear that today. Like that's where we're at today for real. Like, oh, UFOs are real. Did you guys hear that? Did you know UFOs are real?
Really?
Well, the government told me, so it must be real, right?
Wow.
I
Yeah.
mean, let's be honest here.
Right.
Come on.
So they're trying to keep the conversation within these margins. They don't want it to get outside of that. They don't want to hear, oh, we've known UFOs have been around for decades. We've already freaking worked all of the technology. We're also using it against you right now. They don't want to hear that. And they don't want me saying it.
I love what you said before, though, is that, you know, sitting on your couch and doing anything is not gonna help win. And that's
Right.
why me and Omar always coined the term, we are the ones we've been waiting for.
Mhm.
It's us or nobody. It's
Yes.
us or nobody. And whether you call yourself a white hat or an ascended person, a light bearer, a light worker, whatever the classification you want to use, which is exactly what that is just a classification. White hat basically is basically that you're fighting for truth, justice, and freedoms. So regardless of whatever you call yourself, you've got to be in it to win it. And
I
you
say
can't
snap the
sit on
fuck
the
out of it.
sidelines.
People have to imagine the world that they want it to be, right? And then tell me the plan they have on helping make that happen. If they don't have both of those things, they're part of the problem.
Yeah, and you know what's also part of the problem, I agree with you, Eric, is that, you know, this whole term of white hats and black hats, to me, I think we need to snap out of that and step away from it, because what we're doing at that time is that we're taking on identities. And the more identities that we take on, that limits us to our intelligence and
it's a
to
savior
our
program
intellect.
by a different definition.
Yeah, we need to let go of the black hats and the white hats and the pink hats and whatever hats that are out there, not identify with any one of them. Because once we don't identify with a particular thing, then our mind opens up to address that problem, because now we're not identifying with it. We're not saying that, hey, you know, like, I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican. Right there, you put on an identity. Now your intelligence and your intellect is only limited to the intellect of that, you know, Republican
that
or
control
that Democrat.
Group, that control group.
Yeah, and as soon as you let go of that, then your mind expands and then you come into the present moment, you magnetize and center to the present. And then from that point on, you begin to get downloads and you begin to understand your own reality. And then once you begin to understand your own reality and what part you play in this reality, then you can come up with a plan and move forward and say, okay, well, this is my plan. This is how I'm going to do it. This is how I'm going to manifest and foster things that I believe intuitively within myself. Right? There's nobody coming to help us. There's absolutely no way, because if somebody was coming to help us, they would have come here a long, long time ago. If somebody wanted to come here and destroy us, they would have come here a long time ago and destroyed us. It doesn't matter about us, is what I'm trying to say. The ET out there, they don't give a shit about us. To them, we're like bugs that are crawling around on the surface of this rock, and that's about it. But to us, we're something different. We're powerful and we're divine.
We're infinite. We're limitless.
Exactly.
We're infinite and limitless.
And we need to identify with that infinity, not with a particular, you know, sect or a group of people that are trying to do something. Like, you know, right now we're battling this battle against, you know, this other group, but simply by having this stream, because this is being streamed to Watchers Talk, it's being streamed to Full Spectrum Universe, it's being streamed to Deciphering TV. Now we have access to thousands and thousands of people that are going to watch this stream, and then they can discern for themselves as to what the truth is and how they want to foster these truths and manifest these truths for themselves practically for their day-to-day life. So I would say stop identifying with particular, you know, white hats and black hats and all that. And I like what Ashaka is saying here, because it's all part of a psyops. It's really what it is, because they want you to, you know, secularize yourself with a particular group, because then you're easily manageable and you can be controlled and you can be, you know, what's that word I'm looking for, where you can be
manipulated.
That and your credibility as well. It can be destroyed, tarnished, your reputation. Right. So it's better to be not in within a small group, because if you identify as something as the entirety, then they'll have a very hard time in you know, destabilizing you, because at that time you have power. And Ashaka or Akasha is absolutely correct that this is probably a psyops of sorts. I don't know about the Galactic Federation, because I really don't think they care, But this is definitely a psyop, a human psyop, anyways.
Well, they
Well,
could be
how about
there,
at the very
but
least?
associating with them is putting yourself into that bubble of only believing that and that only is what the problem is. Is that identification by assertion, or because now you know that you are somehow a part of this galactic federation. It could be true. It may not be, but that's not the point. The point is we
Mhm.
need to look what's in front of us and really make sure that we're doing our best to
Mm-hmm.
preserve the infinite and limitlessness of ourselves and everything, with everything, about everything.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think what's important is that when somebody steps forward and says that they have information, listen to it and discern that information and research that information, and then and then do with it as you feel, before attacking that person, saying no, that can't be true, right? And that's it, and then leaving it to that, and then trying to repel that somehow and trying to make that into a reality. To me, I think it's kind of redundant. It shouldn't be happening, right? Like, for instance, if I hadn't asked you about the DOMS, I would not know about the DOMS today. I wouldn't know CERN existed in Antarctica because you came to Watchers Talk and said, hey, look, there's these DOMS down there. I want to talk about these fucking DOMS, right? Nobody's talking about these DOMs. Now if I was sitting there, being like the UFO man, and continuously say, well, this can't be, that can't be. Did you see it with your eyes? How does it work? What are the schematics of it? And blah 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 blah. I know that you wouldn't know that information. I know that, right? So, but the practical question for me to ask is, how are they bringing this equipment to Antarctica? How are they drilling it? How far are they going down? And what is the purpose of this? Those are practical questions, because if that is manipulating the weather, if that's manipulating the Schumann resonance of the Earth, then that's going to affect me personally. Then I want to know about it. I want to raise my awareness on it. But if I said, Eric, you're full of shit, I don't believe those DOMs exist down there, and the only HARP that they raise is up in Alaska, and that's it, and nothing else, because
And
the
I don't think
government...
you had a key and you couldn't get in the door.
Yeah. So, how do you know? You don't know shit, So that's really, doing yourself a disservice, because
It's closed-minded. It's closed-minded to not that just like you said, Omar. We hear everybody out. What we do with it from that point forward is on us. So whether you agree, disagree, or discard,
that's your
regardless,
prerogative.
it's up to you. And what it does is, some things when you're going down this path will resonate so much with you but don't make sense, and you have to figure out why it's resonating with you.
Yeah,
And
like that.
some things just won't. And
Exactly,
if it
like
doesn't
that.
apply, you let it fly. And it really it actually does a lot for your day-to-day life too, because you're not holding on to things thinking, well, how come I don't understand that? Well, how come it's not making sense to me in that way? And this is part of this decoupling from these programs, where we have to fit into these identification containers and make us feel some type of way. When you can feel some type of way on your own accord, it's empowering. It's different. It's a different path. And that's what we talk about too, is that there's 1,000 roads or 1,000 paths to one road, and that road is to the internalization of everything. And that internalization is going to give you discernment, walking further down inside of yourself and figuring out what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Truth is a perspective. Perspective is seen through your eyes and your eyes only. So nobody can tell you what is or what isn't. It's up to you. And from that point, you bring it back to the community, and we all prosper from it again and again and again, many times over.
You talk about it like your experience that you had with the tree.
Oh man,
it's
people are going to think I'm crazy. They're going to think I'm crazy.
Yeah, it's
but
unbelievable.
I've had two witnesses to it too, so other people saw it. But
it's unbelievable. Not to the point where it's unbelievable, but it's it's unbelievable that that exists within the realm of our existence, and we're all ignorant to the idea that that can happen. Like, I'll tell you guys what was happening, just to make the long story short. Rob asked the tree. Well, Rob was watching a TikTok video, and the person on the TikTok video asked the tree to touch them, and so the tree did. And Rob is like, "What the fuck?" I got to try this too. So he goes outside, stands in front of his tree and says, "Tree, nice to see you. How you been? Wonderful. Can you please touch me?" And the tree touched him, and he was like, "Oh, fuck, I can't believe this." So he went to his neighbor, asked his neighbor to witness this, and he went out there and he did it again and asked the tree to touch him. The tree reached over, touched him. Woman freaked out, thought that he's in some kind of crazy voodoo. And so she bailed. His wife comes home. He tells her, and she's like, "Oh, no shit, let's go take a look at this." Goes down, asks the tree to touch him. Tree touches him. And, now that's his truth. Now he has an awareness and an understanding of the power and the consciousness of that tree. If that may not happen to me, may not happen to you, may happen to you, may happen to me, we don't know. But the fact is that we have someone here telling us that, hey, this is possible, that this tree, if you're nice to it, will touch you if you ask it. Now, the same thing goes with Eric, is that Eric says, "Hey, I was in Antarctica and I saw all these things." And it's like, "Oh, cool. Why don't you tell me about it? Because that's going to help me, right? Whether, to lift my ignorance today or if it's going to lift my ignorance in a year from now, but I would appreciate that information." Right. So now Rob has this experience as he's dealing with the tree. He now has to decipher that experience. Eric has his experience in Antarctica, which he has to decipher. Now I'm here stuck between the two of them, which I need to decipher both of them and
Right.
say, okay, I gotta go and ask my local tree.
I'm going to make a video, by the way. I am going to make a video of it, but it happened on 8 different occasions, and it was
Incredible.
every 100% of the time. Like, it didn't after I asked it a lot of times, then at that moment I thought it was getting a little annoyed with me, and it was like, how many times am I going to touch your shoulder? But I freaked everybody that's relatively close to me and around me right out. They were just like, "What are you doing? What are you practicing?" Because I've never seen anything like that. And then I even asked it again today, and it touched my face, and it was a different tree. I went to a different tree to test it out, and I actually was trying to use the process of elimination to ask it specific questions if it would understand something else. And again, it responded, and I was like, these trees must be sentient. That's my conclusion. They must be sentient. And when I watched the TikTok video, I was like, this can't be. These people are staging this. Somebody's got a string. Somebody's standing there. And then I saw it a second time, and I'm like, wait a minute. That was my ignorance. To think that wasn't a potential possibility was on me. So I was like, now I'm going to go try it. And lo and behold, there it happened. And it was phenomenal. When it happened, I had like this feeling like, oh my God, I can't believe this.
What an incredible experience.
Yeah. And I was living in that moment for a minute, and I was like, this is insane. And if I tell anybody this, they're going to put me away. I'm telling you, they're going to put me away. But
that's probably why
I
it
never heard
happened.
anything like this. I think it's pretty amazing. But I just want to say, Rob, you just got this wife. Stop freaking her out. She's going to go away.
I know. I literally got married 2 weeks ago, and hence my nice
You're gonna scare the new wife away.
She's been with me for 13 years. If I'm scaring her now, that's a wrap. That's over. I mean, she knows all about me. Not does she agree with everything I say? Absolutely not. But
hey, honey, the trees are touching me. All right, dear.
But here's the other thing, that she's so used to me being so eccentric and off the wall that when I said it to her, she wasn't even like, bullshit. She was like, let's go take a look. Like, let's go experience that. Because we had our first UFO encounter together. And I really think that I manifested it because we were doing a total disclosure event. And I was like, all these people are coming here. I've never experienced a UFO. And I would love nothing more than my future wife to experience something along those lines with me, so she understands the community more. And at the time, that wasn't what I was thinking. I was thinking, what's going on? Like, I wasn't in my subconscious like that. But after the fact, I understood that I made that happen because of my want for her to be a part of something greater than what she is already.
Yes.
And experience some of what we've been experiencing by doing these events and talking to these people and understanding all this stuff. Because to me, it has changed me irreparably from even 8 years ago. Before, I've only been doing my show for 2, but the beginnings of the journey have just changed me in so many different ways that why wouldn't I want to give that to everybody else to experience? It wouldn't be right if I held that back just for me. if that
Also,
makes sense.
what I've learned within the UFO research is that UFOs are more on the conscious level than they are on the nuts and bolts level, and UFOs will show themselves to certain individuals if their distortion and their vibration is at a particular point, or that they're in that present magnetized moment in the present. Like, for instance, the Ariel school incident in Africa back in the 90s, when a UFO landed in a school field, and there was like about 300 people, about 250 children and about 50 staff and teachers that saw this UFO and beings that were coming out of this UFO. And later on, a bunch of researchers came there to speak to these kids and to the staff, and they asked them to draw the UFO and the beings that they saw for them, so that they can get a visual aspect of what was going on. And it was really crazy, because all the children, the pictures that they were drawing were different. The beings that they saw coming out of the UFO and interacting with the people, they were all different as well. So it shows that UFOs, are at a level of consciousness rather than nuts and bolts type that we have this idea of with Hollywood, where Independence Day comes down, opens up, and blows everything up. I don't think UFOs are really like that. Not only that, but I've heard stories where people have said that they've been on board these crafts, and on board these crafts there were no windows, and then when they thought about a window to look out a window, suddenly a window appeared. And that's kind of that these UFOs are biological as well as they are consciously connected. And then I also would go and hypothesize on this one. It's more of a speculation, but I think what the UFO does is that when it's hovering around, it's actually scanning the the genetics of each and every person on the ground. And I think that's how they really carry out their abduction,
to see if they're like a starseed or something, like to see if there's
no,
any
like,
genetics that.
no, yeah, well, kind of like that, because we know that alien abductions are hereditary.
Right.
80% of the times, if you've been abducted, chances are that, one, you're a woman, and second, that the abduction is hereditary, meaning that it goes back in your family generation. So if you're a woman that's been abducted, then chances are your mom's been abducted, your sister's been abducted, your auntie, your grandmother, things like that. Now, when I'm saying that they're scanning for DNA, right, they're scanning for the DNA that they've enhanced, right? So, because there's so many people, now if they're hovering there and they got the laser and they're doing whatever it is that they got to do to scan, then because people are moving, right? Moving from city to city, neighborhood to neighborhood, from country to country. So it would be almost an impossible task for these guys to, track everyone unless they're tracking their DNA. And I think that when they're hovering, they're tracking DNA. And when they see someone that they've had contact with, they're able to show themselves to that individual. Now, I've heard stories where two people are standing together, where one person can see the UFO, but the other person can't, right? So, I think it's all based on vibration and distortion and consciousness, and a level of your consciousness and a level of your awareness, because we have to remember that consciousness is non-local, and that we're antennas that are connected to that consciousness, to that non-local consciousness. So the higher the distortion of this body avatar is, then, the higher that consciousness connection will be. Now, if your DNA has been manipulated, or your DNA strands have been changed, or whatever the case may be, I think these ETs up in UFOs are able to detect that now, either intuitively, psychically, or through technology, or the UFO in itself, as I was saying, that is biological and more than likely conscious, is able to do mass scans to see who's who wherever they are, right? So they land in this city, for instance, San Francisco, They have no idea what's going on in San Francisco. They do a quick scan and they find out everyone that has the upgraded DNA and who doesn't. And if their agenda is to upgrade the DNA of those who haven't, then they go and grab those people and upgrade their DNA. And then if they need to upgrade the ones that they've already upgraded, then they can pinpoint and grab them and, do things like that. So this UFO topic, it's beyond nuts and bolts, and I think majority of the people that are investigating this topic are kind of stuck at that nuts
rigid.
and bolt. Yeah,
It's rigid. And I love what you said about the school, like that everything was different. At first glance, somebody would say, oh, somebody put them up to that. That's a hoax, because they are all different. But when you've become through different styles of consciousness information, you're going to say to yourself, well, wait a minute. Maybe there is a difference in what they're seeing because of perception, not because of collaboration, I guess would be the way to say it.
Yeah, see, Akasha is saying the same thing here. What I just mentioned says that's happened to me and my husband. We had one over our house in 2017. I could see it, but he couldn't. But we thought it was because he had cataracts and his lenses are changed. Yeah, that could be a possibility, but I still feel, that it has really to do with your vibration and your distortion, and they'll only expose themselves to a certain, group of people, right? And when it comes to mass sightings like Phoenix and Mexico and like all of this, I'm not really quite sure. That could be their own way of disclosure, right? Saying that, hey, your government ain't going to tell you the truth, but look, here we are. But again, this is a deep, weird, complex topic, which I think we've made it into complex with all the disinformation that's going around. And that's why we're so confused about it today, because we don't know what's what. But had this disinformation not been put forward, then I think we would be having a totally different conversation today. And I think Eric would have had a totally different conversation with the UFO man, and he wouldn't have gotten squared off with that Rob fella. It's just, it is what it is, guys. And I think all we can do is we can just move forward in discussions like these, conversations like these, have love and respect for one another and not attack each other if you don't agree with what they're saying, and just look to raise your own self-awareness. It doesn't matter what your neighbor is doing. It doesn't matter what my son is doing. It doesn't matter what my wife is doing. It doesn't matter what Rob and Eric is doing, as long as my self-awareness is increased through this conversation is all that matters, because now this awareness that I've raised today is going to go into the pool of my next conversation. So when I have a next conversation with somebody, it'll be just that more enlightening, because I'm just that much more aware. Somebody else being that much more aware is beneficial as well, because now when people like in the audience over here talking and sharing their ideas, that there's a beautiful thing as well, because now we know that we're engaged in a conversation with like-minded people who are vibrating at the same level of consciousness and same distortion as we all are, right? Because this is the reason why we're in this mess right now to begin with, because we've been treating each other like shit for thousands of years. We've been trying to discredit each other for thousands of years. Maybe it's based on our reptilian brain where, I have to be correct and you have to be wrong. It maybe is part of the ego, who knows, and who really cares? Because those are identities that are attached to ourselves. And if we can just let go of those identities and become aware of our breathing and our breath, then all of this, it just becomes very small and minute, right? Who cares if Eric...
I totally get what you're saying. Now, here's a consideration, because you did say, like, if we could let go. I get that, if we could. But in practical reality,
we can't.
We can't.
Yeah.
So let's at least respect when there's manipulators around, is what I'm trying to really bring to the conversation, is that I like all the ideals, I really do. But in the interim, we have manipulators in the conversation. We have disinformationists galore. And it seems that society on a whole is not respecting that, as those folks call people like me with experience the naysayer in the equation, which is really like bass backwards. So it's like this. I think what we saw with this UFO man is, as you guys are happy to join the conversation, is that like I think that people just need to know. They just need to witness that this exists. We don't need to fear it. Nothing going on in the world that we need to fear. We need to just love each other and realize that we can win. We can win against all odds. But the reality is you're going to be quicker to win the fight that you're most informed of. This is just like simple, was it Sun Tzu, the laws of war or whatever? I mean, this is simple stuff. You can't win any war of which you don't know your enemy.
Right. Awareness is the key.
Right. So I'm just letting folks know that the enemy, the battle, the weapons, all of the above, you've been misled on for the benefit of your enemy. It's just that simple. We can win against our enemy if we're properly informed as to where the front line is, what the weapons are, how long they've been used against us. But these are all things we're being lied to about. You know, this directed energy weapon system at the South Pole Station, I found it. But when I try to talk about that, people try to make me talk about UFOs. That's not right.
That was absolutely weird. Like and again, going back to it, like that was when you bring somebody on, the whole point is to extract their information. Eric, what do you know? Tell me. I'm not going to sit here and try and ask you about something that hasn't directly no effect or correlation. You're specific that it doesn't, but I'm not going to go off on a tangent asking you about neutrinos when you're looking at specific things that are, you know, these DOMS and CERN and what we're going through in the programs and your experience. Tell us. I'm not going to try and push my experience on you for validation. I want you to tell me from your mouth what you've experienced, because it's going to enrich my experience.
With your own words.
And that's all I can really bring to the table is I'm trying to impress upon folks that I have an experience. I possess it. No one can take it from me. That's very different than the narratives that people are proselytizing about from podiums. I don't know what to do with that other than present it to the public and have them decide. That's all I can do. I know I have an experience that I can stand behind 24 hours a day, 365 days a week. Nobody can argue with the path that I walked. It's interesting to me that nobody wants to engage in the dialogue. It appears to me that it's because my information doesn't support theirs.
Yeah, it doesn't support their narrative and their agenda. And we know how it is with people like that, right? They'll attack you and kind of what have you.
First came out, I was getting contacted by every ancillary person in the Corey Good circle trying to get me to corroborate his story. And I kept laughing. I said, I can't even believe that you're reaching out to me. I said, have you paid attention to anything that I'm saying? I said, you're telling me that you want to put me on air with that guy and you think this is going to go well for him? I said, I'm not lying to you. I said, I'm letting you know there's going to be fireworks that your crew ain't intending on.
I don't like Corey Good. I never have.
Me neither, which is why when I had these conversations with them, it never went anywhere, because I was telling them up front, I'm not here to support his shenanigans.
The same with Mark Emery, same thing. I think he's part of that Corey Good group.
Oh, Emery Smith.
Yeah, Emery Smith. That's it. Same thing. I don't trust him. David Wilcox, to me, I think has been hijacked as well. He may have started off as a good guy, but I don't really think he's in our camp, right? Because
money becomes the deciding factor. It's the deciding factor for those people.
Yeah, all about money, and he was talking some pretty big game, and none of that happened. And I feel as soon as you involve money into this mix, everything gets screwed up, and the real agenda is really out the window, and you no longer care about the truth, and you just simply care about the money. And
I think money is one methodology of compromising an
Yes.
individual.
Yes,
I
yes.
think there's a lot more ways to compromise an individual where the money is the pat on the back.
Yeah, tell us
Yep.
give us a couple examples, Eric.
I've yet to meet a saint. So most individuals have something they can be compromised by. It could
Honey
be
traps.
good, it could be bad, it could be a lot of things, right? Oh, and I'm just gonna be straight. This is human nature. It is what it is.
Yeah.
You have a child that's really ill. You have health issues with your child. We can help you. What parent's not going to do that?
Yeah.
You're strapped. Your kid's dying. That's a level of compromisability.
That's so sinister too. That really is the
right.
lowest.
So it's not about money anymore. But boy, and when you need people on your team, we have to understand the levels that these factions will function at. Right. So when you see a podcaster out there, they might not be getting money, but boy, they might be very happy to run a controlled narrative for you because you have no idea how they've been compromised.
True that. Not this.
That makes me wonder as if I personally not only want to grow and learn and be able to fund products and operations to fulfill more of an empowerment for mankind. Is there any kind of sort of dichotomy where you can make a decent living doing this and not fall to that capitulation? And
sure, there is.
I was going to say I think anything's possible, but I would hope that supporting people that do what we do, it doesn't always turn into that measure, because then people are less likely to help those people to facilitate the growth and the stature that they could use to proliferate a lot of this information out to everybody, and they reach more people. And it's like this it's crazy. It's like this sliding scale, and you hate to think about it, but at the same time, you got to pay rent and eat food. Like, it's just the way the world works. So it's like this really harsh reality. It's really it's crazy. It's crazy.
I got a
the
message.
Manipulators know those equations, so they present accordingly. So let's just say, for argument's sake, right? I want to get this guy Rob on board. So I find Rob, I find something, any random thing in his life that I can compromise him by. That's how I get Rob. The payoff is I still give him money, though, on top of it. So it's not actually the money that compromises you. The money's the ribbon on the package that lets everybody else know that you've been compromised. That's for the system. Now they know they got you, so everybody else knows, we got Rob. But the general population that doesn't know how you've been compromised, they just see your money, so now they also desire to be like you. Bam.
I've got
so that's how the powers that be compromise you and then get society to want to be like you, and then they have you by the balls, so then they just make you sing and dance however they want, and because you have the fame and the fortune and the celebrity, well, then everybody else looks at you and goes, well, that must be good. Let's be like Rob.
Don't be like Rob. Don't be
understand
like
exactly.
Rob.
Right, because all these celebrities and all these folks, they have just simply been compromised. That's all. Yeah. And we don't even, you know what? You wish it was about the money. When everybody finds out how everybody got compromised.
Oh, God. They wish it was just the money. Right. You could give that back, or you could just stop taking it. But they're so embedded that it becomes religious in a way.
The money is like a consolation to keep these people from blowing their brains out at night for what they did to get compromised.
I want to highlight this comment from Deciphering TV. So let me bring that up, because we've been hitting comments from our channels, but not from... Oh,
great. So we got Nancy coming on.
Yeah, so we got Nancy, and the comment here is, I'll highlight it if you guys are having a hard time seeing it. It says, One of the biggest problems I see right now is many don't even realize there is a fight going on. And these are the ones who distance themselves from those of us who see. I can do part one of what Eric says to do, but having a plan as to what to do to change it, other than visualizing moving to a place where we can grow our own food. But beyond that, it's difficult to talk to people who don't realize, or worse, don't want to know. And yeah, I totally agree, Nancy. There's 99% of the people, I don't think, realize that there is this massive battle that's being taken place. Here, I'll stop sharing that because it looks like we got like a mirror effect going on. And then also Nancy says to Rob, Rob, check out the book Conversations with a Tree by Jane Warren Campbell.
I definitely will.
Check
I
that out.
definitely will. I love, listen, everybody knows books and stuff like that out there and has references. Send them. Send them. I love, you know,
I'm going to try to get touched by a tree. I can tell you that much. I spend a lot of time in the woods, and I've always told folks, money doesn't make me happy. Trees do. You stick me in the middle of the woods, I'm smiling.
Well, you think about this too. If you ever had the thought to sit under a tree, and that's a sentient being now, maybe they're implementing their ability to frequency match you or energetically touch you in a way that brings you to that present where you're like, well, maybe I will sit under that tree. Maybe I will go earth and feel the ley lines and all the rest of it, and really feel the grounding happening. I mean, they're really what we're doing, and me and Dr. Joan are talking about this too. We were talking about Tartaria in a lot of episodes, but what we're showing people is that we are the new Tartarians, because everything that this peaceful society tried to portray, we're slowly working back towards. And that goes with what Michael Cremo talks about, which we just posted as well, and that re-evolution from the de-evolution, to get ourselves back to prominence and be symbiotic with nature and with each other. And it sounds fantastical, but it can definitely be a reality if we all work at it. And that the potential and the infinite that we need, and we need to understand that we are forever students growing. And again, we are the ones we were waiting for. If it doesn't start with us, it won't start anywhere.
I have a favorite tree that I go to, and I do earthing and breathing there. But I've never asked this tree to, touch me. And I'm sure this tree is familiar with me because I, go there lots and hang out with the tree. So I'm going to be there today, and I'm going to ask the tree to, give me a touch and see what happens. And if so, then we're even going to be even more besties.
You better message me immediately, the both of you.
I'm so scared of the power of this. I feel like I'm going to go out into the woods, like walk the dog or something, and I'm going to be like, all right, tree, touch me. And there's going to be like a lightning flash that hits the tree and knocks it on my head.
One branch is going to come and smack me real quick. You're like, oh, thanks, tree.
This is a beautiful tree. It's huge. This tree is huge, probably 40 feet tall, 50 feet tall. It's filled with birds. It's nice and green. It stays green all year round, and it sings. It's just a beautiful tree, and I've always liked it. And I feel very comfortable when I go there and I chill with that tree. So so I'm already friends with it, and it already understands me. So I'm gonna go there and check it out. So guys, we're almost at 2-hour marker. Wonderful conversation we had. Got to highlight some shills and misinformers, and I appreciate that. And thank you to you guys for saving your time, especially on holiday, 4th of July for you guys, and taking that time to come on and raise our awareness on this very important subject, because a lot of us are YouTubers, and we sit and we watch YouTube videos. We don't watch mainstream TV. And we get a lot of our information from YouTube. So it's good to know and understand who's a misinformer and who's a shill, and the type of interviews that people should be doing in these communities. Not saying that I'm setting an example on to do an interview, because I'm not. I just simply want to have a conversation. But this just really highlights for me when I'm watching YouTube videos and I come across something like that, now I have a reference that I can go back to and say, hey, wait a minute, this
Perfect.
guy was acting like that UFO man, so I'm not going to watch this anymore, and block. And
We need to know it exists.
yeah, exactly,
This
exactly.
exists.
Yeah. So with that being said, guys, we'll get some parting words from Eric, and then also, guys, I don't know who it was. It was SK, I believe. If my memory serves me correct, she had mentioned something about John Warren to come on the show. I think it's John Warren, the former race car driver. Eric, I think you've had him on your platform.
John Warner the Fourth.
That's it. Keep an eye out. We're going to try to put together a conversation with the boys and Brad Olson and John, and see what we can do, because Brad is a prolific speaker. He knows a lot of things, and I'm sure he can add a shit ton to our conversation. So keep an eye out for that talk coming up.
That's a hell of a panel too. I mean, just think about
And
it.
I think
like,
they would
yeah,
enjoy the
people with boots on the
disinformation
ground
angle as well. Yeah, boots on the ground, and I think they would also be heavy hitters on the conversation of disinformation, disinformation agents in the mix. They're both aware of that.
Yeah, I think that would be a great conversation. So keep an eye on the space, Full Spectrum Universe, Watchers Talk, Deciphering TV, and so we can help raise awareness. And please go to deciphering.tv, because we're going to be simulcasting a lot of our content to the website, and we're going to be streaming conversations about the old vids, and speak to some doctors and such, that we can't have conversation here on YouTube, but we can indeed have those conversations on Deciphering TV. So please go there, sign up, it's free, and Eric has a lot of great content on there, and downloadable files, PDF files. You want to learn about interstellar communication, he's got PDFs on that. You want to learn about energy weapons, he has PDFs on that as well. DOMS,
They're
PDF
important.
on, yes, very important. And if you guys want to, see the visual.
And you can download them. So like Rob brought up a good point. Like I did this very specifically. You can go there. You could look at them. If you don't trust me, you can look at them. You don't have to download them. If you do trust me and you want to have this stuff for yourself, it's available. You can download it.
I
There's
suggest you download
it. If you
it
want to meet
and find
like-minded people, go there and talk to people while you're looking at these documents.
I'll suggest you download it and then go and you get it from the declassified FBI files, literally in the CIA files. You can find
that's exactly where I got it from.
It's all it is, and that in itself says a lot.
Sugar Bee, I'm going to stop the channel. YouTube messing with our notifications button. Yeah, I'm not surprised, Sugar. I'm not surprised at all. YouTube does this, but as you can see, we're working on alternatives as a community, as a group, as friends, and that's really what we need. And it's nice that Eric can fill that vacuum and give us permission to stream and talk about things that we can't talk about on this particular platform. So I truly appreciate that myself. So yeah, so before
I look forward to figuring out how to get out from around the man.
We love that. Are you kidding me?
Oh,
That's like right up our alley.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you what, if we're going to be talking about what Omar said before, I've got a lot of contacts on that side of the medical spectrum, shall we say, with Truth Seekers Tavern and Clubhouse and things like that. So it's game on.
Maybe you do a day event on just with the doctors and stuff, and just bring on like our normal events, bring on a doctor after doctor after doctor, and
we could do that too.
Just show what we've been saying all along for the last 2 years. But again, let's not dive
down that road.
We'll work that out in the coming future, and usually future for me is just a couple days. Right. So, we'll work on that. And Eric, any final words, words of wisdom, parting words for our audience?
I just want to say, thank you to you gentlemen for always all the due diligent work that you do in the community. I really respect that you guys are out in the front lines trying to make things happen. None of us are perfect, but we're doing our best. And then for the community, I want people to appreciate the conversation that we had today. We're not naysayers. We are here for you and for the truth. We are finding that there are disinformationists in the mix. It's just that simple. In the game of the truth, there are liars. and we shouldn't ignore them.
Mhm.
We should point at them, and we should ostracize them.
Agreed with that 110%. And just we respect what you do, Eric, and we love talking with you and having these conversations and getting that getting your information out. It's imperative. We know the importance of it, and you're like a brother. That we have such a
Thanks,
great
guys.
connection with all of us, and whatever we can do to facilitate that further, just let us know, because really this is what it's all about. We help each other, we scratch each other's back, or one hand washes the other, but both hands wash the face, and we get to it. So I'm just going to do a quick little plug for Full Spectrum Universe. We have a ton of content coming up this week. We have 2 Tartarian episodes. We had to do a 2-part, so we're going to cipher that out throughout the week. I don't know what days yet, though. Then we also have Victoria Reynolds coming on at the end of the week, and Solrita Antaria. We're going to really go down the rabbit hole of consciousness and what it means to project forward that consciousness to help others. And it's going to be quite the week. And then next week, who knows? I also have plans to do a flat Earth and a hollow Earth, not show, but episode. And we've got so much stuff coming down the pipeline. Stay tuned. It's going to get out of control. It's going to be so much fun, and we're going to have a great time. And nobody's going to tell you what to think. We're just going to give you the info, and you take from it what you will. But we love you all, and I love you all. I appreciate all the love and support that we've seen over at Full Spectrum Universe. We're working hard to put that content out there for you guys to really digest it and get all the info you need at a one-stop shop with Watchers Talk and Deciphering TV involved. That's everything. We've got it all.
Right on.
Trifecta.
I love that. I love seeing Full Spectrum Universe growing, and thank you to everyone who has subscribed and watched and has become a member of the channel. Greatly appreciate it. Your support is direly needed. As you can see just from this conversation, that we are dealing with a lot of shit, and to have
To say the least.
to have good people in our corner is always is worth it, and it creates a strong bond within the community, and make new friends, because that's what's really it's all about. Make new connections and share information and raise our awareness, because that's what it's really all about. So guys, thank you very much for watching today on Watchers Talk and Full Spectrum Universe and Deciphering TV. Please subscribe to our channels and give this video a like, and give it a comment at the conclusion of this video. Just jump down, drop us a comment, because it really helps with the algorithm. And as you know, this channel is seriously shadow banned, so all your support is greatly appreciated. My name is Omar, with my guest Eric J. Hecker from Deciphering TV, and my brother from another mother, my co-host Rob Yox from Full Spectrum Universe, coming at you guys from New York. Eric from Alaska, and myself from the west coast of beautiful British Columbia. I love you guys all. Don't forget to say you love yourself, because it really does make a huge difference within your body. Remember, your body is made of water, and water can be programmed, and water is the key to really good health and good vibrations. So I will see you guys later on in the week with our continued saga of Jesus in India, and Jesus in Asia, and Jesus really all over the place. And I'm also putting together a presentation, which I'll be doing on Full Spectrum Universe, about the Hollow Earth and the sounds and the trumpets and such that people were hearing way back in 2012. So I'm going to attempt to decipher that and bring that forward, and hope to help raise a little awareness. So until then, guys, I love you. Thank you for being here. Be well. Happy 4th of July to everyone. Please be safe. Don't drink and drive, and just respect and love each other and love everyone. Bye for now.